thousands of years ago, they were Apollo, Zeus, Ares. Now they are Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the other heroes and villains of DC and Marvel Comics. Join us every week as we discuss the legendary stories, characters, concepts, and other parts of comics as we examine the modern pantheon of heroes. Let's get heroic. Welcome to Under Two Capes, the podcast for the comic book fan. Welcome to Under Two Capes, the only show that knows that I know more about comics than Lad does.
Yes.
I'm Jared.
I'm Lad.
And so first off, two things. Number one, we have a guest in the show. We have Jen back from the Joker episode. Jen, welcome back.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me.
And two, I know we've been doing a crap ton of DC content, but the next couple episodes are going to be Marvel themed, starting with the X-Men. So we're discussing X-Men First Class. Jenna watched the movie. Lad watched it in the olden times.
A while ago, but I remember.
As long as you remember the basic plot, we're good.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about X-Men First Class. So just a little background, the X-Men, they were started in like the 1960s. They're meant to be a analogy for racism. That's their whole stated purpose. And that's why I think, or really now it's really evolved to be any type of otherism. If you've been othered in any way, whether or not politically or just in any way, if you ever felt isolated from society, the X-Men are supposed to represent you. That's one of the reasons why I consider the X-Men the gold standard of how to address social justice issues in comics, because what you do is you keep it general enough that you don't alienate your audience, but make it like noticeable enough so you can still advance your message. And that's what a lot of entertainment is missing today. It's too like on the nose, and that turns people off. So I was like, I don't want to watch anything if I'm going to be beat in the head with a political agenda.
Okay, that's so interesting.
So Jen, so first off, tell us your thoughts on X-Men First Class.
Yes, first impressions. How about that?
Impressions. I really feel for Magneto. I want you to tell me more about this character. I felt very drawn to his story.
Jen froze. Okay, we got you. All right, so Magneto. So he's the thing about Magneto that's interesting is that he may be the antagonist, but he's always been best. What?
But is he the antagonist?
Exactly. We'll talk about that. But really, when you think about the antagonist in the X-Men series is just humanity.
That's the message I got, is that they all want these mutants for their own reasons, or they want to get rid of them, heal them.
Lad and I were talking about it. It's kind of humorous because in the comic books, they exist in the same world as like Captain America, Iron Man. Everyone's cool with the God of Thunder hanging out, but like a mutant, everyone's like, and now you guys suck.
Yeah, but like, aren't all the superheroes mutants in a way?
Nope. Well,
no, but like they have a power that the rest of us don't have.
But the mutants are called mutants because their powers are because of a genetic mutation.
But isn't that what happened to Spider-Man?
Spider-Man, Lad.
Well, okay. Well, technically, you bring up a really good point, because I guess with Spider-Man, like, he was born a normal human, but then he was bitten by a radioactive spider, and it gave him powers that, it changed his genetics. So
but he wasn't born that way.
But Jenna actually brings up a really good point.
That's true, though. Captain America, but he was some outside force.
The Hulk, anyone?
Gamma radiation,
which modified his genes.
I guess it gets down to the fact that they were born like this. I don't know. Marvel never really has addressed this really well.
I think you just brought up a really good point.
That's a problem with Marvel, is that they have this glaring problem and that they don't address.
You just poked the hole in our ship and we're starting to sink now.
So Magneto, back to Magneto. So what's interesting about Magneto is that throughout the whole thing, he may be like a force that kind of fights against Professor X or anything, but they've still maintained to be best friends. They still 100% respect each other. They still love each other as friends, because ultimately they both, acknowledge that they're both reaching toward the same goal, which is the mutant community thriving. They may disagree on how to get to that point, but they still want the same thing. And ultimately, they both recognize that they both want what's best for mutants. So it's not like one side is like wants like take out mutants, or the other one wants to not do that.
What do you think of the Jewish aspect? Because Professor X not part of the Jewish community, right? That's Magneto's extra.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And what's interesting is that
a fascinating aspect of the character.
Yeah, because whenever they do a first X-Men movie, it's like when they did the one in 2000, when they did First Class, it always starts off. The very first scene is that concentration camp scene, because what that's establishing is the context for the debate between Professor X and Magneto. Because if you notice in First Class, they do this really well. They have the Magneto scene, and then they have the Charles Xavier growing up in a mansion scene with all this food and everything around it. So they expertly, I think, contrast the two people and show the whole nature and nurture thing, because Magneto was raised in a world to hate humans. They clearly established he has a good reason to not like humans because he went through the freaking Holocaust. Right. But Professor Xavier grew up totally fine. He's like in like a nice mansion.
Yeah, like I found him. Your listeners are not going to like this, and you might not like it, but I found him like really boring. I'm like, what's his?
Don't worry. Yeah.
What's his story?
Don't worry about it. And then and the thing about Magneto, is that later on, and I think in like the last movie of this series, he actually has a deal with the government where he gets his own island where all the mutants can live free of the government. So he essentially rules all of mutantdom, if you will.
Okay.
No, I definitely see how, like, with Magneto, that he's already like seen how humans can be so evil and oppress a certain group of people. So now that he's grown up and he survived all that, he sees how all the humanity once hates mutants, or they fear them, and he sees this is just going to be a repeat of what he's already been through. So he needs to it's not that he's evil, but he's trying to protect himself and his fellow mutants, and he's doing what he has to survive, which any group of people or country, sometimes you're forced into battle, right?
There was this great scene in First Class. I only noticed it when I watched it yesterday. It's when they're playing chess on the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial, and then and they're talking about what's going to happen to mutants after they help fight Shaw, and Professor X is like, oh yeah, they'll accept us because we've risked our lives to go help them. And then Magneto goes, at first, but then there'll always be people who attribute the actions of Shaw to the entire mutant community. And he goes, it starts off with suspicion, and then it gets to camps. And by the way, Magneto is proven right in a future movie, which is I think the next one after this. And in the comic books, they have this storyline called Days of Future Past, where the mutants are put in concentration camps and killed.
Really?
By humans.
Tell me more about that. That's my friend. My friend Charlotte. She absolutely loves comics. She doesn't feel well these days, so that's why she's not on the podcast, but she will one day.
We'll have her on. 100%.
Your other friend Charlotte? No, different friend.
It's a different Charlotte. Our family knows so many Charlottes. It's ridiculous.
I am close with 2 Charlottes. Jared knows a Charlotte. There's just so many Charlottes.
Okay.
But she did actually some of her graduate research on Magneto in particular, because she's really interested in comics and how they treat the Holocaust.
They do, because 99% of the guys who basically advance comics, like Stan Lee and all those guys, were Jewish. In fact, it was Jewish guys who invented Captain America, because his purpose was he was created before we entered World War II, and their whole idea was we want to get people okay with entering World War II, because the Jews are being wiped out by Hitler. We need to have someone to like rally the American people to dress in the American flag to enter World War II.
How old is Captain America?
Since 1939 or so, 38, somewhere in there.
Is that one of the oldest superheroes?
No, the oldest one is Superman. He was created in 1938.
Is that also in response to the war?
No, that was in response, I think, to the Great Depression.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because
I would love it, but I don't know if you have this episode. You might, and I just haven't seen it. Sort of the history, like the lineage, like who comes first, in what order, and
that's a great idea. We're gonna do a show.
Context.
Yeah, and it's gonna be an announcement. We're gonna do like a comics 101 show on like how to get into comics and all that stuff, and then we're 100% gonna address that issue. It's a great idea. So anyway,
you know, I love your podcast so much, but I almost feel like I have to know something to enter the conversation. I feel like such a newbie. So I would love maybe an overview. You and Lad can like tag team each other and get PowerPoint.
Yeah,
that's why I do a lot. That's why when I do the storylines, I start off by explaining the context around which these storylines are. So anyway, so Days of Future Past. So the government eventually does is they create these robots called Sentinels, and they're designed to hunt and kill mutants. And they specifically are designed with software that allows them to, because what identifies a mutant is a certain gene called the X gene. And what happens is the Sentinels can pick up on the X gene. So they know, even if you're like a person like Professor X, who doesn't have an outward mutation, they know you're a mutant.
Don't we all have X genes? X.
No, but it's a specific gene in addition to our X chromosomes and all that stuff that identify.
Sorry, that was a stupid question. Yeah.
No, it's okay. But so they create these Sentinels, and in the movies, they make it so the Sentinels can adapt to any mutant power. It's like if you're a fire guy and you're blasting with fire, they'll become ice and just go right through you.
Wow.
And
so they can do the opposite. So like
essentially, yes. So what happens is the mutant population is like almost wiped out. So they have to send someone back in time to prevent the Sentinel program from being activated, because otherwise the mutants are screwed.
So who goes back? How does
Wolverine.
That work? Wait, so how does Wolverine become part of the story?
Okay, so that is explained kind of in the original X-Men 1, is that so an important part of Wolverine's character is that he doesn't remember his past. So
At all.
All he knows is that he woke up one day, he has claws, and he has a dog tag that says Wolverine. That's it.
He doesn't know how he became a mutant?
Well, he knows how he became a mutant. He just doesn't know how he got the claws and the adamantium skeleton. Adamantium is the metal that was grafted to his skeleton. And there's a movie that explains his origin and how he got the adamantium skeleton, because he's actually 200 years old. He was born. He came because the way the mutants work is that so they have the X gene and they're born, and then they're normal people up until they hit puberty, and then their powers manifest. He hit puberty in like the 1800s, and they have this scene in his movie where he's going through every war from the Civil War up to Vietnam. He's fought in every single war, and he regenerates, so that's why he lives, and he's totally like young-ish for Hugh Jackman, but so he doesn't have and at that one point he's shot in the head with a bullet made of adamantium, and that's what wipes his memory.
Is that what's in his body?
Yeah, yes, because it's the only metal that can pierce his skeleton.
Okay.
So it actually goes through his head, but his brain heals, but it didn't heal the memories. So he shows up at the X Mansion because actually what happens is he's on the road. He picks up this girl named Rogue. Now, Rogue is a classic mutant character that's been on the X-Men for like all the cartoons and all the comics.
Okay.
And I'm trying to see if I can get a visual. But anyway, so as I explain this, so Rogue's mutation is actually pretty interesting because whenever she touches someone, she actually absorbs some of their life energy, and they kind of go into like a coma. So she can't actually touch anyone. I love this. Yes. Here is
an amazing like co-host, like following
Rogue is this one right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So she can never actually touch anyone, because always she'll either kill them, or in the case of a mutant, she'll take their powers.
That really feels like she is gonna have a poor intimacy romantic relationship.
They touch on that in the movies. And first off, Rogue is the example of some of these mutations aren't exactly useful or helpful in life.
I see.
But So anyway, they're attacked by Sabretooth, who is a mutant that's basically Wolverine's brother. And he was played by Liev Schreiber, I think he pronounced his name like that, in Wolverine's origin movie. And then Wolverine's knocked out, and then they're saved by the X-Men, and then they take him back to Professor Xavier, and Xavier says, if you stay here and fight with us, I'll help you unlock your memory.
You know, he should help him even if he doesn't want to help.
Yeah, that's weird.
I feel like that's manipulative.
Oh, Professor X is very manipulative. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very much so that it comes back to bite him in the ass in a later movie. But, and then Wolverine eventually regains some of his memories, but stays around because he finds a family where he's accepted in the X-Men.
I see. Are there other mutant siblings?
Mutant siblings, yes, because in X-Men First Class, actually, the blonde-haired guy,
yeah,
his brother is the dude Cyclops who shoots eye beams.
Okay.
In fact, in a later movie, and actually the next movie,
so it's not random. It runs in people's families.
It can run in people's family. It's actually established that it passes from the father to the children during the conception process. The father's gene is the one who passes the X gene to the family, to the kids.
That's cool.
And then so there's Scott and Alex Summers. Alex is Havoc. The one who shot those beams out of his chest. That's essentially his brother, and then his brother shoots eye lasers. There's let's see who else. Magneto in the comics has 3 kids, one of which can control metal, one of which is a speedster, so he's super fast, and then another one. So the other one is played by Elizabeth Olsen in the Marvel movie Scarlet Witch. They sort of made it in the Marvel movies where she's not an X-Men because technically Marvel doesn't own the movie rights to the X-Men right now.
What happened there?
Because during a certain period, Marvel was going bankrupt, so they had to sell off stuff to stay afloat. So they sold off the movie rights to like X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. And it's kind of interesting. Those were the most popular books. That's why we got Avengers, because pre-Iron Man 1, pre the Iron Man movie, the Avengers were like nowhere near as popular as they were today. In fact, the news articles were Marvel sends in the B team. In fact, and I was telling this to Lad, Marvel, one of the biggest problems Marvel had with their books is trying to convince people that Iron Man was not a robot.
Okay, how did they convince people of that?
Just say he's Tony Stark, take off his helmet.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so going back to that, so Scarlet Witch is actually Magneto's kid, and in the storyline called House of M, she actually is responsible for like further wiping out mutant kind because she goes crazy because she doesn't have full control of her powers, and basically says no more mutants, and that's known as M Day. And then the mutant population is reduced from like a couple of billion, I think, to like a couple of hundred.
I see.
It's like complete.
It's crazy.
So wait, if they don't own the rights to this movie anymore, will there not be more movies?
No.
How does that work?
Disney bought Fox, so they own. So essentially, they can bring in the X-Men now.
Okay.
They still haven't done that, which they've been plenty of opportunities to do so. But actually, Lana and I were talking, they should keep it separate because here's why. Because then you don't run into that issue of how come Thor's okay, but everyone hates mutants? How come Spider-Man's okay, but everyone hates mutants? Just keep it as, because here's the thing, in the comics, the X-Men really do exist in their own separate world, kind of. I mean, they even relocated all the mutants to an island.
Mm.
They have their own state now.
Lad, what's your favorite franchise or comic?
So that's kind of tough because most of my experience comes from like watching some of the movies or some of the shows and stuff like that. As a kid, I've watched more of like, I don't know, Batman and Superman, stuff like that on TV. And then I went I don't know, I got to go see Avengers. That was pretty interesting. And then I'm just the X-Men are cool. The X-Men are cool. So
They were the first MCU because they were the first franchise to have an interconnected movies.
Okay.
yeah, I think that's kind of what makes it a bit exciting with the like X-Men movies and the MCU, the Marvel movies, where you have characters in one movie and then you have another movie, and then sometimes you'll see characters show up again, in another movie. So that can be exciting.
All right. Jen, I have a question for you. All right, who was right, Professor X or Magneto? Can humans and mutants coexist, or is Magneto right in saying they'll never accept us?
I don't know that there's a yes or a no there. I can say that if I came from Magneto's place, like if I were him, if I were he,
Everyone works.
I I understand why he thinks that. I think if you've seen the absolute worst of humanity, you've seen people take others to gas chambers just because they're a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel exactly how he feels. And then you have Professor X, who's honestly kind of idealistic. I love that. I want us to use hope as a strategy, but like it feels it just feels like he hasn't lived that much. What do you think? What do you guys
Because
think?
remember, the movie starts off showing all of the different home lives these guys had, if you will, because it goes from Magneto in the concentration camp to Professor Xavier in a nice mansion in Westchester, New York.
Yeah.
I feel like Xavier, he's very idealistic,
He
but
is 100%.
He has his psychic powers, so and he can kind of read people's emotions. So I feel like he knows people better than they know themselves, and he thinks that he can understand people's emotions and find a solution to things. But sometimes people don't know their own feelings and what their own struggles are, and so it's harder for them to just Xavier can see that these two people can be reconciled together, mutants and humans. But sometimes because he understands everyone's emotions, he knows what's going on. But humans and mutants, they all have their own fears and struggles, and it's hard for them to connect with each other.
That's true. But I think that is actually the beauty of the X-Men as a franchise, the whole idea about how they're superheroes saving a world that hates them.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, and in fact, they make this point in the comics, and then when the X-Men's like, wait a second, we saved the world just as much as the Avengers, but everyone hates us. What the hell?
Yeah, I find that really poignant, almost. Like, why don't they just go off on their own little island and say, like, bye?
They did. And in fact, what they basically said was, we're not requiring the approval of humanity anymore. We're just going to coexist with you peacefully if we have to, but we will defend ourselves if we have to.
Mm-hmm. Do you each have a favorite X-Men and why?
Mine is, okay, so I have three. Mine is either Cyclops, the guy with the eye beams.
No, just kidding.
Wolverine, because it's Wolverine, and I love Hugh Jackman as the character. And
tell me more about Wolverine. Like, I want to know why. Yeah.
Well, because I like the idea I like the idea about how he starts off, he doesn't have a family. And I like his story, how he finds the family in the X-Men. That's why he sticks around and becomes like a staple of the X-Men team. And so Wolverine is kind of like what Marvel calls an anti-hero, in that they're not like good or bad. They're just they're pursuing good means by like extreme measures. That's why I consider Magneto to be an anti-hero. I don't consider him to be a bad guy, particularly looking at where he came from. But
complex, and I like these characters that can be both, like I can disagree with some of their methods, but I understand.
The thing about Wolverine too is that he has trouble trusting people. When you see his movie, you explain why. He's been through like 3 wars, 3 really, really bad wars.
Was he in World War II?
Yes, he was. He was on Normandy. They show it. They're getting out of the water. He's smoking a cigar, and everyone's so nervous. But he heals, so he's got no reason to be nervous. So he's just like, I got this. He just go and he's been through Vietnam. When you think about it, the amount of trauma this guy has been through, considering he also had metal grafted to his very skin. I mean, no, skeleton. They use drills. What do you think?
Why did they do that?
Because what happens is that, so originally what people don't realize is that the adamantium claws, he actually always had claws. It's just they were bones before.
Okay.
And then the guy who, yeah, in X-Men Origins, they established that. So he was on this sort of mutant Black Ops team led by Colonel William Stryker. And Stryker comes to him after Sabretooth kills Wolverine's girlfriend. And Wolverine wants payback. He says, okay, I'm going to promise you 2 things.
His brother?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was all meant to, it was all orchestrated by Stryker to manipulate him into testing the adamantium on Wolverine. He says, I'm going to promise you 2 things. You're going to face more pain than any other man can endure, and you'll have your revenge. And then so Wolverine's like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Point me up. I'm going to allow you to do this. Point me at Sabretooth and get the hell out of my way, because I will kill you if I have to. And then
tell me about, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jared.
I'm sorry. And then my third favorite mutant, these are all 3 are tied for number 1, is Emma Frost, the one that was in white in X-Men First Class.
Yeah, you got to tell me more there, because I thought she was a throwaway. Tell me more.
She's actually very important. So she's a member of a group called the Hellfire Club, and they're basically like an Illuminati-like group, and they orchestrate a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So, but she actually becomes an X-Men.
Okay.
And she actually has a pretty decent like redemption arc. And so her powers is that she's a telepath and her skin turns to diamonds, at which point she's indestructible.
Right.
And
I guess I was offended because I just felt like, why did they have her walk around in a bra and underwear the whole movie?
That's how she kind of does stuff.
Can we get an explanation on that?
Well, because the Hellfire Club was one of those places that caters to certain types of entertainment.
A strip club?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Well,
that where it works?
In a sense, it had that type of, it was a little more than a strip club. It's kind of like a mixture of like a high society brothel, per se. And she was like, she basically, yeah, she had to do some things to survive. So, yeah, she eventually breaks off from the Hellfire Club and then is adopted by the X-Men, and she actually starts dating the leader of the X-Men, Cyclops, and he kind of helps her both deal with her past and also start anew, if you will, and be like a hero, as opposed to, because she's still trying to earn everyone's trust. She's still trying to atone for what she did.
Interesting. Lad, tell me about your favorite.
Go ahead.
So, okay, from that movie, I mean,
or like in general, your favorite mutants.
I mean, so I kind of, I really liked Beast. I thought Beast was really cool.
Beast is really cool.
Like, the guy that was doing like all the experimentation, because he doesn't seem to have too much like personal struggle himself in the movie.
Until he gets turned into a blue ape.
Right. Like his feet are like kind of weird, and but he's trying, but he's there helping everyone out. Like he's running the science experiments, helping people, and then when he tries to like, he wants to make himself perfect. He tries to like use his science to make himself fit in with everyone else, and in the process he makes himself worse. He just turns all blue and looks like a monster then. So I think that's kind of like something sad about that. Like if he had just been happy with what he had, it would have been better off. And then he tried to reach for the sun, and then
in fact, Jen, so in the later X-Men movies, he's played by Kelsey Grammer, Dr. Fraser Crane.
Oh.
So I'm like, that's where I know you from.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, I mean, I think that is an interesting character. I mean, I just wish that it's kind of like a metaphor for people that just want to change themselves and want to conform, and for good reasons, like I don't fault them. It's not shallow at all. It's they just want to feel like they fit in, and I feel so badly for them, especially him. I mean, because that
blue. Now he's just blue.
Now he's a blue cat.
You stick out like a sore thumb. When
he has a nice back and forth with Wolverine, where Wolverine calls him a furball.
Yeah,
that's cute.
Oh boy.
So
Oh,
There's a storyline, by the way, fun fact, where he gets like hypnotized, like his personality is kind of like overtaken by the beast. So the tool to bring him back to normal is a ball of yarn.
I mean,
somehow he encoded it into the yarn that's like certain tactile stimuli, restores personality. And I'm like, because comic books.
okay, yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Who is your least favorite X-Men?
That's a very good question.
Oh, geez. We were just talking about this today.
Yeah.
Lad, you go first so I can find
I'm on
mine.
the spot now. I guess maybe that's a tough one. Maybe the guy, you know, the demon looking dude in the movie, he was pretty scary.
Azazel?
Yeah, Azazel, the guy that was teleporting around.
Yeah, the dude who's red.
Isn't that like a name for the devil? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that
In Marvel, they have many different like names for the devil, like Mephisto and then Azazel and all. And you could definitely see the dude looked like a devil. Even my mom asked, "Is that a devil?"
yeah, he was kind of scary. Maybe him.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. This is my least favorite mutant because she's annoying in the show. Her name is Jubilee. Her power is that she shoots fireworks at people.
That's a superpower?
Yeah. A lot of these mutants have really, really useless powers. Like, I kid you not, here's a mutant's power. His name is Ice Cream, and he can turn himself into any flavor of ice cream he wants. That's a legitimate mutant power. That's a mutant power.
You know, this was like a, you know, what, 60s or something?
Yeah, I
and
know.
They did a lot of weird things, I guess, you know, back in the day. Okay, so I have a question for you then. When you were watching through the movie, did you like, you know, you saw the characters, you know, interacting, you know, those different ideals going on there. Did you see, you said you saw what Magneto was fighting for, you understood him, but did you think that what Xavier wanted could be possible? Like, do you think he could try to make the humans like mutants, or do you think,
or at least peacefully coexist?
You know, like he worked and had, you know, that, you know, they were working with the government to help them, you know. Do you think that's possible to try to do something like that?
These are like deep questions. I love it. I mean, I just kind of think about today though, like, don't we have these questions, different, you know, people identify different ways, and I want to say it's possible. I do.
That'd be cool. You know,
I think that if they were to integrate the X-Men into the Marvel universe with the Avengers,
I think
provide. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
I was gonna say, I think today they would have a better chance. I feel like we have at least a dialogue around inclusivity, and we're more, I don't know if we're totally more accepting, but I think we're more open to the idea of accepting different identities and different, widening the limits of what we think about people, if that makes sense. You know, we're not as narrow-minded. I think in the era that they're talking about, maybe not. We're only like 5 days away from killing Jews, so maybe no. But I feel like today, what Professor Xavier wants, I think it's possible. I think it would take a lot of time and a lot of dialogue, but I don't think, like, when I say he's naive, I don't think it's like a hopeless cause at all. I think I just connected a little bit more with Magneto. I felt like he had a slightly weightier backstory. But that is not to say that I didn't think that the other character isn't interesting. I think he wants to do it in a more peaceful way. And I would always advocate for the most peaceful way of trying to coexist. Whereas Magneto's like, no, rage. I get it. I get both sides. I think it is possible. I just think that would not be overnight.
I disagree on we're more accepting of that nowadays, because here's the difference. We're dealing with people that have very insane levels of superpower dumb, which is, it's sort of, the circumstances are different in terms of having like the power to like control the weather is different than having a different color skin. So I feel like at this point, I feel like in terms of the why the mutants are different, I feel like it's not. Honestly, I don't think really that we would have peaceful coexistence with the mutants just because there's so much distrust. Then you have the Magneto thing, and then a lot of evil mutants that do like a lot of bad stuff. Yes, you have the X-Men that try and save everyone.
But you can't throw out an entire group of people because like 5 of them are bad.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm saying society tends to do that all the freaking time. It's one of the things that annoys me about people so much.
What does Lad think?
No, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you kind of both bring up some pretty good points about that because it is kind of tough, like where, you know, these are people that are very, you know, you could say like very dangerous people. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's really tough to say, you know, like if the situation were real, like how that would play out. And the thing is, the one thing I do know for sure that the first like incident that occurred, like Magneto or an evil X-Men, everyone would call for them to be removed. I think that's what we've done in the past with different groups of people.
Look what happened to Muslims after 9/11.
Exactly. Like I feel like the very first incident, it would be like all over. People would immediately turn against them.
When you have a character like Scarlet Witch, for example, who's a mutant who can reshape reality, yeah, people are not going to trust me. People are going to like fear her.
True. You are correct in that they have powers that touch other people's lives, whereas people now are kind of fighting for like, I'd like to use this pronoun, I'd like to identify this way, I want the right to exist in this space. It's not really harming other people.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't necessarily affect like our continuing our lives.
Yeah. So I do see your point. I mean,
it's kind of a tough place to.
But let me put it this way. Here's the way it could work: is that if they were to bring the X-Men into the normal MCU with like the Avengers and Captain America, and then the X-Men and the Avengers like save the universe together, united, mutant and unmutant, that might be able to show people we can coexist and that most of them are here to help. Mm-hmm. You need that example of like mutants and non-mutants working together in order for the idea to be a little more possible than it is with them being two separate worlds. If it's just the X-Men, I don't think so. Because remember, the future of this is the future where the government builds robots that wipe out the mutants. It's not like an alternate universe. It's the future.
So let's circle back there. How does that end up?
All right. So what happens is the circumstances have been changed over years, but based on what the movie said is that, so you have this individual named Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage in the movie, and he's supremely distrustful of mutants to the point where he has a program called the Sentinel Program, which is to design robots to detect and take out mutants. Because he says, well, you just won a war, you just lost a war in Vietnam. Do you really want to fight a war in our very streets? And people obviously don't want that. So what happens is that he's assassinated by a mutant, and that causes the government to like 100% like ramp up the program to create these Sentinels. And then the Sentinels go online. At first, it only targets mutants, but then it starts to target anyone who basically provides aid to them, which would be like the Avengers or any good person. So, and then it only leaves all the bad people.
Interesting. But wait, tell me more. Are you?
But, oh yeah. Yeah, but so it turns out that they decide, let's send someone back in time in order to stop that assassination from happening. They were supposed to send Professor Xavier, but it's a supreme toll on the mind to send someone back in time, because the way they do it is that it's not like stepping through a time portal. What someone does is that they send your consciousness back into your younger body. In other words, the body of Wolverine, it turns out, is still in that time period. It's just his consciousness is sent back in time. So it was supposed to be Professor X, but it's with the toll on the mind, it could like snap your mind. What they say is that the human mind can only take so much stress before it snaps. And then Wolverine says, what if you had a mind that has the capacity to snap back as fast as it's being torn apart? So because they're sending him back 50 years.
Wow.
So they decided just send Wolverine back in time. So they send him back in time, and he has to get everyone together and say, stop this assassination from happening, or we're all freaking screwed.
Wow. And so, can you tell me more about what happens to Professor X and Xavier and Magneto? Like, do they ever part ways? I mean, they sort of are like on the fritz when they at the end of first class.
What happens is,
yeah, because it seemed like it just seemed like Magneto was very upset. You know, he didn't mean to cause Xavier to be shot in the back, and he was, he stopped everything when that happened because like he turned on them, but he didn't want to kill them, because they're still his friends.
He still loves every mutant too.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is in the movies, they're always friends. They're never enemies. It's not like it's not like Batman the Joker bad. They're always best friends. And then it turns out, so eventually they start to reform into eventually Magneto starts to see, yes, it is possible to get people together. And then they establish, so what the movie does is it establishes a different timeline, actually, where the world sees mutants save the president of the United States, and that obviously improves people's perception of mutants. Mm-hmm. So Magneto's like, okay, if we just leave them alone, they're not going to screw with us. And then it is kind of a common theme where whenever Magneto gets happy, something happens that puts him on a dark path. And then he has to go through that whole arc where he's like, okay, take a second, breathe, go help your friends. And then eventually at the very end, the last movie in the series I hope you don't mind if I spoil it, but because you asked. And then it shows, so Magneto has that island of mutants, and he tells Professor X or Charles, I'd like to offer you a place on my little island nation because you once offered me a home in my time of need. I'd like to do the same for you.
Oh, and what happened?
They go off to the island.
No.
But where can you go from that story? Is there
Oh, there's so much. There's stuff that they can adapt from the comic books because these characters have existed since the early 60s. So there's plenty of material that they can do to base it off of, because I think the third movie, actually, the one after Days of Future Past, is when the very first mutant shows up. It's a being named it's like El Sabanur. I know the fans are probably screaming at me for mispronouncing his name, but basically he's Apocalypse, and he's the dude that always has the 4 horsemen. That's what they established. Whenever you hear the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, that's him, and he recruits 4 mutants.
He's 4.
Yeah, he recruits 4 mutants. Magneto, a being known as Psylocke, who has basically powers to create what amounts to a lightsaber, and Angel, who's to do with angel wings, and then Storm, who controls all the weather. And so he sees that he sees humanity as he sees mutants as the next stage in evolution, and humans are the ones that have to be wiped out, because that always happens. It's like the more advanced species wipes out the less advanced species. So
you think of that? Are they the more advanced version of us?
Well, they're called Homo superior.
Maybe that's something.
That's the theory, is that the X-Men are the next stage of human evolution, because what they established, by the way, in First Class, is that it's kind of a throwaway line of dialogue, but the nuclear age of the 50s accelerated human evolution to the point where mutants are really manifesting now.
How does that work? The evolution's supposed to make things worse.
Nuclear radiation.
I guess it's with the Hulk, where the nuclear radiation just somehow
it was
makes them
gamma
better.
radiation in his case.
Okay, but I guess I feel like radiation makes things worse most of the time. I kind of like the idea of the X-Men, instead of it being an idea of evolution, that it's more of an adaptation where they have the genetics, kind of in there, but only certain individuals have those genes activated. When
it's still that. It's
it's like finding having wild animals, and then you have one of the one, say, peacock is just much more brighter feathers than the others, or it's, you know, much larger than the others.
A
It
mutant
has,
peacock.
it has better, you know, it's not genetically changed from the other ones. It hasn't like evolved or anything, but it just has better, you know, it's you know, its adaptations, it's, you know, its parents, it just has really good genes. And I think it'd be cooler if like the X-Men were more of like, you know, just, you know, like you said, the X gene is just an adaptation where
They still have that.
still
It's
have
just the nuclear age accelerated it manifesting itself.
How does that work though? How does, like, you know, placing a bomb on someone?
It's not bomb. It's just proximity to like nuclear reactors and such.
How come all the people after Chernobyl didn't turn into mutants?
Yeah, that
Well,
just
here's the
causes
thing.
cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it this way: whenever you go to get an X-ray, they say, "Are you pregnant, or is there a chance that you could get pregnant?"
That is true.
There's
They
a
have-
reason why they ask that.
Well, they say it
Yeah,
because it'd
I
be
don't-
bad for the baby.
Radiation.
Yeah, not because it's gonna turn into a superpower. It's because it could harm the baby.
We're
then.
talking about comic books, lad.
Jared wishes that could turn you into a mutant.
In which case, sign me up for some radiation. I'll take chemo if it gives me superpowers. Are you
By
kidding
the
me?
way, I'm 100% certain nobody has ever asked you, "Are you pregnant?"
At least now, I've gotten MRIs and they've asked a girl with me that. Okay, that's how I know that.
They do ask you that. I just know that they're not going to ask you that. Oh,
No,
I guess.
not me. It's just that if there was a woman in the room.
Oh, okay. Right. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So Apocalypse. So Apocalypse sees mutants as the next step in human evolution. So he starts a process that's basically a doomsday scenario for mankind, and he recruits Magneto because Magneto has another one of his incidents where someone close to him dies, and then he decides, I can't be happy because if I'm happy, something's gonna happen. It's gonna screw it up.
He never have like a happy life? Does he never have a family?
He does
Nobody?
nothing.
Nothing?
He it always seems to be with Magneto that, you know, if he turns bad, you know, he's evil for a couple years and he tries to fight against the X-Men, you know, and maybe eventually he gets a redemption arc and he turns good. No matter what, there's always something happens, an occurrence with humans or something where, you know, he just feels all that pain just comes back to him. Like he's never ever free from all that he's been through.
He's never really at peace.
Right.
What I find interesting about this character is I don't know if they ever go into this. It wasn't even added to the diagnostic manual, like for mental disorders. PTSD. I guess I find PTSD interesting, and I'm sort of studying it for school in a different context. But I guess I do they ever talk about his mental?
If you notice in the movie, he has flashbacks where he's trying to use his powers to do like a ridiculous thing because he says, "I play off my anger. That's how I'm able to do all this stuff." And like with the submarine and all that stuff. And then Charles tells him, "You don't have to play off the bad parts of your life. You can play off your good parts." Because remember, he tells him the most focus lies between rage and serenity, and that's when he's finally able to lift the submarine.
Yeah. So he has those intrusive thoughts. And...
Oh yeah, that experience is the reason why they start with that in every X-Men movie is because that's establishing why he doesn't trust humans. Very good reason not to. I'm just gonna tell you that.
Great reason. I feel like a better one. Go ahead, Lad.
I feel like a lot of the characters from the comics have like should all be diagnosed with PTSD because, you know, like
Look at the Punisher.
Like Batman is like, you know, like everything is like super dark. Like all these people need to see help, you know.
Need to be seen by a therapist.
Look at the Punisher. He watches his family gets killed and grabs a couple of guns and goes and murks people.
Yeah, I don't think he's well. I put that out there. But also Batman saw his parents die. So they all have these sort of, I guess, do they ever really go into, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think they do. Like, that's a good question you bring up because I think that's where the stories get interesting when they delve into their past and really show where these characters just like break down because they just, you know, when they're just completely vulnerable, you know, not just, you know, random good guy fighting against a totally evil person, right? But like we're a flawed, you know, hero with a, you know, that past dealing with, you know, a criminal that maybe has other motivations also that isn't necessarily evil.
Yeah. particularly with Batman, I'll use him as an example. He always basically thinks that Bruce Wayne was also killed that night because he sees that as the birth of Batman. He sees that he's not Bruce Wayne anymore, he's Batman. In fact, they touch on that in Nolan's Batman Begins, where he says, no, the face is the Bruce Wayne is actually the mask.
Like Batman is like he kind of so into like the darkness and just trying to fight crime that he sees Batman as his main persona, like that's his main identity, and Bruce Wayne is the the mask he puts on, the masquerade where he just pretends to be a normal person living everyday life.
And they see this in he has an actual character progression in these Zack Snyder DC movies where he's played by Ben Affleck. And Affleck's Batman goes from this person that's at this lowest point in his life. He's at this total rage. This is when Batman straight up has machine guns strapped to his car and starts murking people. So he goes from that to he's inspired by Superman and becomes more hopeful in the Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 4-hour cut.
You bring up an interesting point. I never really thought of Batman as enormously traumatized and depressed. But I feel like that is kind of how they talk, like people talk about their depression, like the regular person that puts on a suit, like that is the mask.
Right.
Yeah.
Often for people who are like really unwell.
It was interesting. Go back to what Lad said about how all these people should be locked up. You have to be a little bit of crazy to dress up in a brightly colored costume and punching people in the face.
I do agree. I have much more sympathy though for people like Batman or
the Punisher,
or the Punisher than I do for like the Joker, for example. They really wanted me to get sympathetic for him.
Did you watch the Joker?
I did. It's good.
She was on the Joker episode.
Okay.
It was good. I really liked it. I thought it was super interesting, but I was like, am I supposed to feel like I don't condone what he does, but
right.
I do feel bad.
You're supposed to though. You're supposed
to kind of feel bad for him, but I'm like, you're still murking people in like very painful ways. I'm like, nah.
But like Magneto, I don't know. I'm kind of like, yeah, I get it, bro.
That's why I say Magneto's not a villain. He's an anti-hero. He's still advancing a righteous goal. It's just he's doing it through very extreme means.
Okay, so an anti-hero is somebody who has good intentions.
Yeah, like the Punisher. He's wiping out all crime. Like in a way, Batman. His whole goal is so no one has to deal with his trauma, or no one has to go through what he went through again. Just he's going through it by punching crime in the face.
Right.
Or in the Punisher's case, shooting crime in the face. And then in Magneto, he's just advancing the rights of a people, and he's supposed, and you could think about him as like a fictional version of Malcolm X, and then Professor X would be Martin Luther King Jr. advancing the peaceful side, while the other one is advancing the violent side.
That's so interesting. Is that has anyone written about that, or has that been?
They have. In fact, I read a bunch of articles because I'm doing a paper on on politics being used for political mobilization, basically getting people to like believe certain political ideas and how it works. And then I use the X-Men for the example because again, it's been well documented, and Marvel has been very upfront in saying that the whole point of the X-Men is to represent both racism and that whole argument of are we trying to do we advance civil rights peacefully or not?
That is so interesting. I feel like if they actually told people more, if they were more upfront with this is about civil rights and racism, I think I would have gotten into the X-Men a lot sooner.
Here's the thing.
But I feel like in the previews of the movies, that's not immediately apparent.
Right, yeah, it's not apparent because here's the thing. They have to get people to see the movie and have to make it super exciting. But when you actually see it, there's more of these characters than meets the eye. Jodie Foster.
They're trying to trick. They're trying to.
No, she was the one that said, I would never star in these superhero movies because they don't have complicated characters. And I'm like, screw you.
Jodie Foster's obnoxious. Carry on, lad. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say.
But yeah, I think the reason why, I've long said, and in fact, I had the idea that what colleges should do for first off, teach more about the intersection between comics and have whole classes on the intersection between comics and politics. They already have that with like standard prose texts, and the teacher I'm doing the paper for also agrees with me. But and then what I felt that because here's the problem. The reason why people look down on comic books is because they have pictures. That's why. It's because they've been conditioned to believe that only children read picture books. Where when you actually, that's why for the long, I spent a year trying to convince my parents that comic books were legitimate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really believe, I mean, I'm in the literature department, and it's true that there is the primacy of the word, the written word, but people really forget that, at least in English department, they still really love the works of Charles Dickens. Those were illustrated, and they were actually read, from a family, like to a family member or like to a group, and they would show a picture. I mean, yeah, pictures don't mean anything about the quality of the story. I think now within the last 5 years, academics have shown a lot more interest in this medium.
Yeah, 100%.
A lot more. I really want to get my friend on this show. She will be a much better guest than I will be.
I say this in my paper, and the point that, so basically what I bring up is that there are 3 superpowers that comics have. They're able to visually tell a story. They're able to actually communicate a message. They're able to use subtlety to communicate a message, and they're able to like be relatable to people. The visual part is where I bring up the fact that, let's say, take patriotism, for example. There's the Captain America costume is designed to inspire patriotism. That's why it's like the American flag. There's an image, a Superman cover of a comic book that's him. He's got his hand on his waist like this, but then behind him is the American flag, and he has a bald eagle on his arm. I'm like, very America.
Yeah.
It's the point where it's the same thing. I hesitate to use this word because it's been like negatively associated, but it's basically propaganda to a degree.
Comic books?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, everything is kind of propaganda.
Everything is propaganda. Everything is propaganda.
But yeah, so like even shows on HBO about like domestic violence, like that is in a way like public service announcements, it's both public service announcement as well as propaganda.
Right.
On how you look at it. Yeah, I know. I think comics are a really fascinating way to relook at, history, because they are looking at history as we talked about with the Holocaust.
And
or the different wars that he was in.
Jen, have you heard of the movie Watchmen?
Yes.
That's based on a comic book. That's supposed to be an analogy for the Cold War.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I kind of remember the visuals of it. I don't really remember the story.
Snyder.
Was it great? Did you love it?
It was really good. Yes, it's really good. I haven't read the comic book yet. I plan on doing that. But the movie is really good because it uses the superheroes and it basically superimposes So it's an analogy for the Cold War in that the superheroes represent the nuclear race.
Okay. Well, maybe we should all watch that. And when I come to Florida next week, we can all talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah. So one more question. What's your favorite mutant?
Magneto.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I connect with his story. I think if they had given me a backstory or like a sad sob story for each one of them, I'd be like, okay, like you're my favorite.
Well, there's Beast.
You.
There's Beast, and then there's
Beast. I guess because they're 2 leaders, you have Professor X and you have Magneto. I guess there's just going to be more meat to those characters.
Yeah, there has to be. There has to be. You have to establish the context behind their ideologies, because ultimately they're 2 kind of different ideologies.
Wasn't loving the presentation of women?
Well, it's because it's in the 60s and it's a period piece, so.
That's a very good question, actually.
I'm just telling you that. And plus the Hellfire Club, the gala, that's exactly what that's been like for like years and years and years and years.
Like even the other girl with the dragonfly wings, like she's like a stripper. Like give her a different job. I don't know.
That's a very good question, actually.
Yeah, that's true. But again, it's supposed to be a period piece in the 60s.
Yeah, I guess it's also just a question of how they filmed. I don't know. I noticed how women are filmed. I think we do.
Yeah.
We need a close-up shot of her.
And That is the difference between the original cut of Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. In the original cut, they had a scene where like they zoom in on Wonder Woman's ass. And it's like they have the scene that you can look up where like the Flash falls, but he falls on Wonder Woman and his face is in her boobs.
Ugh.
Where if you go to Zack Snyder's movie, that's all gone because he respects women.
I'm really pleased. Who was the other director?
Joss Whedon.
Okay, well,
He was the one who did and he's known for having like, well, in addition to his stuff, if you look at his Avengers movies, again, there's a scene where like Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson's character is like sitting at a desk. Her suit is kind of unzipped and she's leaning forward like this. So I'm like, oh, dude, my God. One of these days you're going to get Me Too, bro. And
wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he was. By like everyone he's ever worked with.
Yeah. So, do I have any questions? I feel like we answered.
Yeah, I think
questions.
we covered. I think we covered like the.
Yeah, I said why.
We covered a lot of really good topics.
Yeah, who's your favorite? Who's your least favorite? Those were my questions. I also found Jared would get all of these. I mean, you two, Lad, you both would get all of these really quickly. It was like a 20 X-Men trivia questions only mutants will know.
All right.
Jared,
let's go.
Jared, do you want to get that right though?
Stop it. Let's try. Let's go.
Let's end with this. Okay, so but Jared already answered this one. Okay. What metal alloy does Wolverine's skeleton?
See if you're listening.
Can I get what is adamantium for 100?
Excellent.
Boy, I was really hoping you got that.
Okay.
All right. Which mutant that appeared in the Deadpool movie proves that the X-Men, quote, really have run out of names, end quote?
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Negasonic Teenage
There you
Warhead.
go. Yes.
Excellent.
Because it was like a really weird name too.
Yeah.
Oh boy, Deadpool is actually an X-Men character. He emerged in an X-Men comic.
Really?
Yes, that's where he was first appeared. Yeah, he was and plus his first appearance in the movie was in the Wolverine movie.
Oh my gosh, I thought he was a parody. Okay, never mind.
He's a parody of a DC character, but he was first brought in as a Marvel character on an X-Men comic.
All right, I love it. Okay, we'll watch it when I come. You can give me an education.
There's two.
Who is Quicksilver's father?
I answered this one. I know the answer. I'll see if Lad knows.
Yeah, so it's Magneto.
Yeah, Quicksilver mused in the
He's
film.
the speedster.
Once knew a man who could control metal.
Yeah.
What did Stan Lee make a cameo appearance as in the first X-Men movie?
Oh, geez, that's a deep pull. Are they talking about First Class?
I think it's probably.
I think it's the first X-Men movie, 2000. Sorry.
Oh, geez,
2000.
that's a deep pull.
Was he a like hot dog vendor? I feel like
Oh my God, Lad! Yes,
Really?
Did you get it? Oh my gosh!
Lad, I am so proud.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Was that a guess? Was that a guess?
I think I read it somewhere and it was like on the back of my head, like it feels
Because
weird.
we did a Stan Lee episode.
Yeah.
So that's
Excellent work, both of you.
Stan Lee
That's
is my
really niche.
Stan Lee actually served as my surrogate grandfather.
Oh. All right. What was Stan Lee? What was Stan Lee's doing in his X-Men: The Last Stand cameo?
Okay, do I know this one? Okay, because I just recently watched this movie, so come on.
I don't know.
What was he doing in his?
They have a picture. I can't share the screen.
Drop the link in the chat and I'll look at it.
You want to see the answers? Absolutely
okay.
not.
Yeah, nice.
Can I read your mind?
There's a picture, and it's a picture of these two guys. I think it's Magneto and Professor X talking, and there's like cars outside.
Talking in X-Men First Class.
No, Last Stand.
I mean, sorry, Last Stand. Are there houses around him?
Can I put the picture in the chat? No, I don't think so. No, don't click on it because you're gonna get the answers.
No, I won't. But
I'll show you this picture.
does he have? Are there houses around him?
No.
Okay.
Is he a jogger or something?
If you get this right, I will freak out.
Guessing.
Oh, geez.
Yes?
Is he a taxi driver in it?
No, a good guess though.
Oh man.
Is he driving a car?
The answer is he was using a garden hose.
Oh, that's what that one was. I thought that was First Class. In my head, I had that one in there, but I was like, oh, dang. Oh, that's right, because when Jean Grey goes crazy and the gravity goes nuts, the water starts flowing upward. Dang it.
All right.
Tough one.
Who is believed to be the first person ever with a mutant gene? Born
An
with-
Apocalypse?
Yeah.
It is Apocalypse.
Yeah. Because he's known as the first mutant. And
Yeah.
I said it earlier when I talked about Age of Apocalypse.
He has a funny face, not gonna lie.
He's played by Oscar Isaac.
What superhero was Storm married to?
Do you know this? I do, but do you know? Black Panther.
Black Panther is an X-Men?
He's a Marvel character because remember in the comics they exist in the same world.
Right. Okay. Can you name all 4 actors who played Magneto in the X-Men films?
There's been 4 actors?
Maybe as a kid.
Well, Sir Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender, and I don't know the other 2.
Must have been like
It's young Magneto.
Oh, then I don't know
it must have
this.
been like as a kid or something like that when they showed the kid child scene.
I don't know.
So Bill Milner and Brett Morris. Which mutant time travels in the comic version of X-Men Days of Future Past?
I got it. It's Kitty Pryde, the Shadow Cat.
You're good.
Really?
I recently watched this storyline.
Okay.
Yes, the answer is
I almost said Wolverine, but then she said comics version. I was like, yeah, that's different. That's different.
okay. What's Gambit's real name?
Remy LeBeau.
Remy LeBeau is Francais.
No, he's a Cajun.
Okay. It's an upcoming Gambit film. Okay.
That was canceled. That doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, really?
He was gonna have his own origin movie, but they didn't do that.
All right. Scott Summers has 2 mutant brothers. Can you name them?
Alex Summers, Havoc, and see, I know who's the other one. I know this one.
Matt?
I didn't know there was a third one.
Pass.
Vulcan, Gabriel.
Okay, Vulcan. All right. I get half credit though.
Yeah, you get half.
Half credit. Can you name all 6 playable characters in the classic X-Men arcade game?
Oh, jeez.
This is like a really good.
Now that's a quiz.
Oh.
Wolverine. I'm trying to think of who are the ones that would conceivably do this. Cyclops. Beast. Rogue. Jean Grey.
Well, what's her name?
Marvel Girl.
No.
Storm. Okay. 3 more. Nightcrawler.
Oh, okay.
2 more.
Magneto. Arcade game. Okay.
Gambit.
Colossus.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
One more.
Scarlet Witch.
It starts with a D.
Everyone's screaming at us in the chat in the comments. D. A mutant who's a playable character in the next. What mutant do we know that starts?
Daredevil?
He's not a mutant.
Okay.
Don't take my chance to answer this question. D.
That's oh man.
Sparkle.
Oh, Dazzler.
There you go.
There you go. I was like, wait a
Alright.
second, and then we said Sparkle. I'm like Dazzler. Like her powers is she turns sound waves into light.
She turns what into light?
Sound waves.
Okay, interesting.
It could be the other way around. I don't know. I don't know if it's just something with light.
By what name is Victor Creed better known?
Sabretooth.
Okay.
That's Sabretooth's actual name.
Can you name all 5 X-Men who appeared on the cover of the first ever issue in 1963?
Beast, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, Storm, Professor X. Yeah, Storm was not on the original team.
And not Professor X.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
Cable.
I have 4, right?
You have Beast,
Beast.
Cyclops, Marvel Girl. You have 2 more.
2 more. Okay. Who else? Nightcrawler.
Mm-mm.
All right. Beast. Iceman.
Hold on. Wait. Yes. So you have
Yes.
1 more now.
1 more.
Beast, Cyclops, Iceman, Marvel Girl, and
Havoc.
starts with an A.
Starts with an A. Okay.
Mhm.
That's a mutant that was a member of the original X-Men.
Really good question.
Yeah, that is a really good one. Jeez. Oh man. What they say, Atomic Skull, but he's DC.
Let me see your halo.
Angel.
Nice.
All right, next one. What prize did Marvel Comics start sending to fans who reported mistakes in the X-Men comics starting in 1964?
I do not know this one. You?
I don't know, like a signed comic book.
The no prize. This is
Oh,
no
the Marvel No Prize. It was like a certificate that it's just like kind of like a paper certificate, and it's just called a no prize, and it's not. It's like nothing. I remember reading about that.
That is so mean.
By what other name is the X-Men's plane, the X-Jet, also known?
Blackbird.
Mhm.
Because it is modeled after the SR-71 Blackbird surveillance plane the military used.
What X-Men villain was created as a workaround of the Comics Code Authority prohibition on vampires?
Mobius, the living Morbius, the living vampire.
Mm?
Oh, I got better. Is okay. So does it start with an S?
Mhm.
Sinister.
Mm-mm.
Damn it.
You're failing.
Starts with an S.
It's honestly, I think, a Lord of the Rings name.
Sauron?
Yes.
That's a name of an X-Men villain?
What? I didn't know.
Sauron, oft associated with the Savage Land, is a pterodactyl-like alter ego of Dr. Carl Lycos.
Oh boy, so Jen, in case you're wondering, the Comics Code Authority. So in the 1950s or so, there was an uptick in juvenile delinquency. So the FBI did this report, and then this academic wrote a book called Seduction of the Innocent. His name is Frederick Wortham, that blamed comic books for it. So they actually had congressional hearings on comic books, and then a lot of comic book places folded, and then the other ones, and the comic book houses that survived ended together to form the Comics Code Authority, which is basically a self-censoring body that said, like, you can't have vampires, you can't show people dying, you can't depict drug use.
Why can't you have a vampire?
I don't know. You can't have anyone that's like a devil-like character.
I love that they came up with this, like a code of ethics.
Well,
And then during all the Vietnam protests, Stan Lee was like, "Screw it, we don't want. I don't think right now we want government-approved seals on our media. Just throw out the damn thing."
All right. What mutant powers does Jubilee have?
She creates fireworks, right?
The ability to project pyrotechnics.
Which is fireworks. And I told you that's why she's a useless mutant.
That's fancier way of saying
Bonus
it.
points if you also knew about her vampire-like powers.
Oh yeah, she becomes a vampire in the comics. Yes.
Oh really?
But I thought we just said vampires were not allowed.
This is after the Comics Code.
All right. Of
Like,
Jean
no
Grey.
What?
Of Jean Grey, Storm, Mystique, Jubilee, and Rogue, which of the 5 has Wolverine never shown romantic interest in?
Okay, so of Jean Grey, Storm, Rogue.
Of Jean Grey, Storm, Mystique, Jubilee, and Rogue.
Oh wait, Jubilee. 'Cause, like,
Jubilee.
it'd be really creepy if Wolverine had romantic interest in Jubilee, a little 16-year-old kid.
That'd be kind of fun.
Because I was like, wait a second, I would have said Rogue, but
Let's see. In the X-Men comic, whom did Cyclops marry after Jean Grey died, quote unquote?
Emma Frost.
He did not, Jared.
Oh, okay.
Jared.
Who did he marry?
Oh.
Okay, so Jean Grey's dead.
I don't think I
at
can ever
this
trust
point.
you
It's probably
again,
after
Jared.
the- Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer.
Okay, so Jean Grey's
Absolutely
dead.
outrageous.
So Jean Grey is dead. So this is after Dark Phoenix. Not Emma Frost.
Did he? Was it Mystique?
It does start with an M.
Oh, Wanda upside down.
Who had a resemblance to Jean Grey?
Do you know this? I obviously have to read more of X-Men. Madeline Pryor,
Yes,
who, by the way, is Jean Grey.
it's her clone.
Jared, that's a very that's a big difference.
It's very big. Scott Summers fell for her because of her resemblance to Jean Grey, which should be expected. Maddie is her clone.
That's so funny because you actually seem like a really hardcore comic book fan by saying it like that.
That's so good. Jeff.
That's a really
That's
funny.
really
actually,
good.
that's
I
awesome.
like that. Well done. Well done.
That was a really good one.
All right, so that's the last question. You all are amazing.
That was a hard quiz. Jeez.
I mean, I guess you both have some reading to do.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Fuck, I just got back from the comic shop.
I thought we were fans.
All right, I'm gonna let y'all go. Thank you so much for having me.
You're always welcome, Jenna.
I will be with you in person. Can't wait to see you all. Thank you so
Yeah, we'll
much.
have you in studio. All right. Have a good week, Jen. Lad, always a pleasure co-hosting. Stay heroic, everyone. Bye-bye.
Jared, you're awesome.
Thank
Bye.
See you.
Stay heroic, everyone.